Over the last couple of years, I've fallen in love with city builder games that are actually puzzle games in disguise because they're much less about city building and much more about making sure that tiles all match up so that you can score as many points as possible to keep on going. But quite a lot of those games have an awful lot of RNG around them. And that keeps it good for replayability, but it makes it slightly more difficult to have a consistent puzzle experience. And this is where River Towns comes in. In River Towns, you have levels that are handmade and designed so that they are the same every time, with in their layout being predetermined, the type of blocks that you need to place into the level being the consistent and the same from level to level. The key RNG here is the order in which those tiles come out will be different every single time. And so you kind of know roughly what's coming, but you just don't know when. And so you can half plan out your city and how you're going to tackle this level in advance and hope you get the rub of the green and not get some really nasty turns early on that kind of forces you to adapt and change on the fly. As I said, in every level in River Towns, you have a specific level layout, but where you start in that level is different every single time, and it's determined by you. The very first move that you make as a player is to determine where you start on the river, and this becomes like your river source, for example, and you'll see that the tiles either side of it then become light. You can then place wherever your first settlement is, so long as it overlaps with that light tile, and then that will make whatever borders onto that settlement then available to be settled upon too. Now, in River Towns, you have three different types of settlement. They all come with their own kind of little mini perk to a degree. And you are looking to try and keep the colours of these three settlements together as best as possible, because this contributes to your overarching score. So you don't want to mix and match too much. You want to try and group things together, but you also want to try and point them in a direction so that they can then complete various other subtasks along the way. Because just kind of tessellating shapes together so that it makes a ginormous clump of colour is only one way of scoring points. If you spot trees on the map, for example, if you build all the way around and encompass them, they will then score you points. Then there'll be shrines or temples or lighthouses, for example, that will either need you to build all the way around them and therefore clean up their rubble so that they become powerful. Or with the lighthouse, you'll find their rubble is dotted around the level, and so long as you lay some towns on top of them, that will then build up the lighthouse to then give a multiplier to your final score at the end. It could be that there's buried treasure dotted around the island in the level, and so long as you lay over a town on that, you'll then collect more points that way. The purple towns are called clergy, and if they touch certain shrines, that then scores you bonus points. Or it could be that you've got little tiny hamlets that are dotted around the level that if you run alongside them, you'll become neighbouring towns and therefore build more points that way. But again, you're always thinking about how do I connect things together so that I'm keeping my colours close together as well, because that will score you the big points at the end too for having the biggest clump together. There are other ways and means of being able to connect things up, and this is through grey tiles. And what these do are connect two disparate towns of the same colour, essentially. So if you've got two purples or two blues or two reds kind of growing in slightly different areas, if you can connect them with a big grey tile, and the tiles that are grey are usually quite big anyway, that will then kind of draw them back together and they'll be counted as one big thing again. Paths and roads are introduced later into the game too, and these are colour agnostic, but what they do is allow you to bridge giant gaps, which can be very helpful because some of the levels in the campaign mode in World 3 particularly onwards are much longer or varied in shape, which require you to have to think about how do I get from a very tiny river source deep inland so that I can get to all of the gumph like the treasures and the clergy shrines and all of the temples and lighthouses and stuff like that, that then score me big points. And so you're kind of going off to try and cover as much ground as possible, and roads really help with that. And then lastly, there's something called corruption, which is what you would like to try and remove from a level over time as well. All of this comes together in a deeply satisfying and very enjoyable experience. And I think this game really plays into people who plan because you get to see everything that could possibly occur in a level up front. And so you can plan in advance for how you're going to tackle things and where you're going to go. And because, yes, the order in which things will come up will be different every time you play, but you can still kind of shuffle off and hold a tile to one side, or you can try a slightly different strategy maybe to get a higher score. It will only take you a couple of goes really to get 3 stars if you've had a very difficult run and a very unlucky run of having lots of awkward, horrible tiles appear up front first. And I have to say that didn't really happen to me too often. And even when it did, I could still make the best of a bad job and get nigh on close to a 3-star score by using my muxie and my nous about me to try and get there. The main campaign mode will take probably between maybe 6 to 8 hours to complete, I would imagine. And that's not 100%ing it unless you've been incredibly lucky. But then there's also a level editor and Steam Workshop to go and download player levels to then keep the game going way beyond the campaign itself. And the level editor is really easy to pick up and play, and it's just literally selecting the tiles that you want to put in the level and then colouring in the squares, very much like a Picross style game. And I found making levels really simple and easy, and then you just basically play to validate the fact that you can actually do something in the level, and then it goes off onto the Steam Workshop. There's also daily challenges as well, which I believe are actually not quite daily. They are every other day challenges, but still good fun to have because there's always fresh new things coming down the pipeline. And that's really what keeps river towns fresh and interesting and fun to play. So I give this a hearty thumbs up. It's definitely more on the structured side of a city builder turned puzzler than an RNG side of things. And it's much more around fitting blocks together rather than thinking about, oh, I'm building a city, I need different types of buildings together. It doesn't really work like that as much. But if you're coming to this much more from the puzzler perspective rather than the city builder perspective, River Towns is totally a worthwhile purchase and buy for you.